Alrighty, I guess we are at the point in the series where there isn't much more technical stuff to cover. If you haven't watched the other parts of the series, I would recommend you check out the playlist. Link is up in the corner and in the description. Anyways, in this video, I wanted to not give a straight up sales pitch. I'll leave that to Microsoft themselves, but instead cover some benefits of Windows 365 and some use cases where it shines, and some where it does kinda the exact opposite. Sound good? Cool. Just one thing before we start. If you are looking for a comparison between Azure Virtual Desktop and Windows 365, then you haven't found the perfect video. I did make one a while ago though, so you could check that out. I want to keep this video as short as possible, so let me just start by saying that if you are looking for a service that will give your users their own virtual PC and pretty much nothing else, then Windows 365 will probably be pretty much perfect. But if you are looking for something with tons of features and possibilities, then look elsewhere. The simplicity of Windows 365 does come with a cost, and that cost is a lack of flexibility. So while Windows 365 is a service that you and your users can easily get started with, you will rather quickly discover that if you want to do something other with it than what it was meant for, well, then you will run into some limitations. Let's look at some benefits and good use cases for Windows 365 before we dive into some drawbacks. Because, it's only polite to build someone up before you tear them down, right? So, the major benefit of Windows 365 is, of course, its simplicity. The fact that you only need a new license in order to onboard new users to the service is really neat and allows for use where you need to rapidly get going. And this could be as simple as a case where you have a new hire, but the laptop you ordered for them hasn't arrived yet, and the only one you have laying around is a really old and slow one that doesn't meet today's standards. In that case, you could assign them a Windows 365 license, and they can use that while they wait for that new laptop. Another scenario where you would need to rapidly get going is if you have an ongoing issue of some sort. The type where the entire business is down and you need to bring in a crew of externals to help you get back online. In that kind of scenario, it would be really great to be able to just create identities for them and assign Windows 365 licenses, and they can get to work. This does, of course, require you to have some preparations done beforehand, but keep it in mind that you can prepare all the needed stuff for Windows 365 without having a single license. So, maybe keep that in mind when you are writing up those disaster recovery plans. Another cool benefit with Windows 365 is the management of the Cloud PCs. And no, I'm not meaning just the fact that they are all enrolled to Intune as part of the provisioning process. That is neat, of course, but have you thought about the fact that Windows 365 actually has a decommission process built in? Once the owner of a Cloud PC either doesn't have a license anymore or has its assignment removed from the provisioning policy, then that Cloud PC goes into a grace period before being deleted. Compare that to the decommissioning of a physical device, where you have to securely wipe it and so on, and I think you'll find Windows 365 way is a bit smoother. Use cases for this is basically any employee, but the ones that come to mind for me is especially consultants and temporary staff. Consultants usually have a device provided to them by their employer anyway, so why should you provide them with another physical device? As a consultant myself, I know I would be happier using Windows 365 than a client-provided physical device. Just keep in mind that, at least for now, the Cloud PCs themselves get deleted at the end of the grace period, but not the device records in Azure AD or Intune. So, maybe have some sort of auto cleanup of them there. And I could probably also mention user friendliness as a major benefit for Windows 365, but that kind of goes without saying at this point. So let's instead discuss a use case I don't think a lot of people consider when talking about Windows 365. As you may or may not know, the Cloud PCs are not directly exposed to the public internet. The connection from a user is to the control plane for Windows 365. The control plane then functions like a reverse proxy to the Cloud PC. This makes the Cloud PCs more secure, as the only way into them from the internet is through the Windows 365 service. They have no ports open publicly to the internet. That means if you have a locked down environment, a place where nothing should be publicly exposed, you can use Windows 365 as a way in there. Basically using the Cloud PCs as jump boxes. Just set up a network connection that places the Cloud PC's network interfaces within that lockdown environment and you're good to go. Just please do secure the sign-ins to Windows 365 with at least MFA first if you haven't already done so. Now, I could go on, but let us keep it at that. Time to move on to some drawbacks. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned a lack of flexibility, so that has to go to the top of lists of drawbacks with Windows 365. And another one would be the cost. Yes, it is a simple and predictable cost since it is license-based, but it is also costly. Using Windows 365 as a user's main workhorse is more costly in the long run than purchasing a laptop. I mean, I guess it could turn out cheaper, but I would definitely put this as a drawback. But that is comparing Windows 365 to a purchase of a physical device. How does it compare to other virtual solutions? Sadly, not better. Just straight up running a virtual machine in Azure can still come out cheaper. And comparing to Azure Virtual Desktop, it just gets worse. Especially when you factor in that AVD supports multi-session, so multiple users can share one VM, which isn't something Windows 365 supports. It does, however, beat DevBox, which is built upon Windows 365, but I guess that's not much to brag about given the price point of that service. And another thing that I have to mention here is the fact that it is still, in essence, remote desktop services. And that does have drawbacks of its own. Sure, you can train your users, but the simple fact is that most users are used to using a local computer, and bringing in the concept of virtual anything will probably cause confusion. Sure, you can mitigate this with things like OneDrive's known folder move, but how many times haven't some random user still saved something on what they thought were the C drive, but in fact was a terminal server, or in this case a Cloud PC? Another drawback that comes with being a remote desktop services is also the fact that you need to be online to use Windows 365, and you should have a decent and stable connection as well. You just cannot use your Cloud PC if you are offline, at least not yet anyway. More on that in the final part of this series. And lastly, you are relying on Microsoft to have their services available. It's not often there are huge outages for them, but it has certainly happened. And if Microsoft has an outage that affects your connection to your Cloud PC, then basically all you can do is sit there and be unproductive. Or of course, you can catch up on my other videos, so subscribe if you're not already. Anyway, if this video brought you any insights, leave a like, please. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments, and I will do my best to answer them there. Cheers!